Garnet Trust Hour on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome in to the Garnet Trust Hour here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, along with you on this Thursday morning. Today's special guest, a name the Gamecock baseball fans are very familiar with, Grayson Greiner, joining us this morning. Grayson, first of all, thanks so much for joining us, and how you doing today?
Oh, thank you all for having me. I'm doing great. Working upstairs, so this was a pretty easy commute for me to come right downstairs and hop on with y'all.
Did I ride the elevator with you earlier this morning? I thought so. I was like, man, that guy looks really familiar. I had no idea.
Yeah, we sure did.
So, yeah, normally we have to give instructions for this show. We have to say, hey, you can park here, don't park here. Grayson's like, I'm going to hop on the elevator, ride down. Well, man, like he said, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you've been in here before. I've heard you on the integrated media commercials as well. But congrats on retirement.
Thank you.
I guess. I guess for the people listening, you want to kind of tell them what you're up to now. How's that been? I'm sure it's a transition. You know, you got some years in the league. That's not many people can say that.
Yeah, it was a dream come true for me. Since I was 5-6 years old, all I ever wanted to do was play Major League Baseball and come to South Carolina and play here. And was able to accomplish both those, thankfully. And like you said, retired May 7th. Drove across the country from Albuquerque, New Mexico with my wife and kids. Got home, kind of just relaxed for a couple weeks, went fishing, golfing, and after about a week, I got pretty bored and decided I need to get out in the real world and see what I wanted to do. So went the route of commercial real estate, working with Colliers, South Carolina, upstairs here at the Bank of America building. And I'm 4 days into my new job. I started on Monday, but I love it so far. Just great people up there, and I'm excited to learn and get going there. But it's a transition. You know, you do the same thing every day for 23, 24, 25 years, and then you don't really know what to do with yourself. But I'm loving it so far, and I'm glad to be home with my family.
That's what I was going to ask, is how weird is it not doing baseball-related stuff every single day now?
Even in the off-season, I'd have a workout schedule. I'd work out in the morning, get lunch, go hit and throw in the afternoon. You're so regimented as an athlete, you know, what you eat, what you do with your time, how you sleep. To not have that schedule and that structure has been really weird, but now I've found a new schedule and a new structure, you know, coming to work every day, still getting to work out and get to watch my oldest son go play basketball, play baseball, take him to school. So it's a new schedule, but it's still a nice schedule to have.
Is there anything about just the baseball life that you feel like, maybe you won't know for another couple of years, but when you look back, is there a part that you feel like I'm going to kind of miss that part the most? I know a lot of people say just hanging out with the guys, locker room, goofing off.
It is cliche, but that's definitely what it is. I mean, it's for those 6 months, those guys are your best friends. You see them every day from 12 o'clock till midnight, pretty much. You're with them 12 hours a day, every day, on bus rides, on planes, on the field, in the clubhouse. You're with them every day. There's some interesting conversations that happen. You know, a lot of hypotheticals. You gotta find ways to kill time. You know, you're in the dugout, you're not hitting. You talk about whatever, you goof off. So those are the times I'm going to miss for sure. I'm not going to miss going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts or taking a foul ball off my thigh. I mean, I'm not going to miss that stuff, but there's, like you said, there's a lot of stuff I am going to miss. It's all I've ever known. So it was my first love since I was a little kid. I'm going to miss the competing aspect of it, but luckily the commercial real estate industry is kind of a competition in itself. So it's good to fill that void.
Over the course of an entire calendar year, when you're playing at the major league level, how many days would you estimate you're away from home?
Oh, you're gone from February 1st to October 1st. I would come home for the 3 days with All-Star break, but other than that, you're not coming. And I would have aunts and uncles that would text me and be like, "You coming to so-and-so's wedding?" I'm like, "I can't, I'm gone." But they don't understand that you can't just pop home for a couple days and you're gone for 8 months.
Wow.
Well, and if you want to get back to something else competitive as well, I do have a spot on my adult softball team. I was going to say, if you want to come out there's a standing invitation if you want to come hit some bombs.
I don't miss it that much. Not yet.
Just saying.
With his height, kicking a kickball, that might
might be good.
I have a lot of interest in playing some other sports.
Okay.
Doing a little basketball league. I think I'm starting a bowling league in a couple of weeks. So
you're just going to try it all?
I love golf. So any way to get those competitive juices going, I'm all in.
Yeah, the way you just said that about golf, like I feel like you've probably gotten the itch. It sounds like. How are you?
I've had the itch for years.
Are you you hitting them straight, or how good are you?
Good days and bad days. I'm not very good. I'm about a 13 handicap, so I'm usually shooting mid to high 80s on a good day. If I have a bad day, I'll be in the mid 90s. So
how does the golf swing affect the baseball swing?
Doesn't anymore.
Oh, right.
But it used to, not that much. I kind of learned when I first started playing golf, I had a huge slice. I mean, I had to aim into the tree line on the left to try and keep it in play. And then I learned, the different mechanics of the golf swing versus the baseball swing. And at that point, they don't really overlap too much. But apparently everyone says that's why pitchers are the best golfers, because they don't have to worry about it.
So I know we were talking a second ago. You said kind of you've lived your dream growing up in this area, playing for South Carolina, playing Major League Baseball. If we kind of go back in time a little bit to your decision to go to South Carolina, was it kind of like the recruiting process? Some guys, they got 4 or 5 teams. They're making a decision. I'm sure you had a bunch of offers, but were you kind of like, all right, South Carolina is always where I'm going to go? How much did your sort of fanhood affect the decision versus like, well, at the time, this is the best program in the country as well?
Yeah, it was I would say I probably had a more unique recruiting experience than the average guy. I mean, my dad played basketball here. My grandfather played football here. Everyone on my mom's side of my family lives in Columbia and went to South Carolina. So from the time I was born, it was all Garnet and Black. It was a dream of mine to play there, but I also wanted to, make sure I did my due diligence and saw some other programs. But so I committed here right at the end of my freshman year, I think, of high school. So, I mean, I was committed for a long time. I did the camp circuit with North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, and Clemson, kind of the main programs around here. Didn't really, I kind of considered one of those other programs, but, I committed to Coach Tanner and Coach Holbrook very young, and don't regret it for a day. It was everything I wished it would be, and got to play for a national championship my freshman year, coming off of back-to-back national championships. So that was just a feather in the cap when I committed that they happened to win those 2 national championships. So it was a no-brainer for me. I consider myself, one of the biggest Carolina fans out there. I've lived it my whole life, and I'll live it till the day I die.
So given the fact that you committed your freshman year of high school, at what point, what age did you realize you were good enough to play at the college level?
When they started offering me, I guess. I don't really remember. It's such a blur back then, but it's definitely an honor when, you're watching some of these games in the College World Series and that same coach was, giving you a college offer a couple weeks prior. So when you get that kind of validation, and also the validation of when you're playing high school, playing travel ball, and you're one of the better players on the field, that makes you feel like you can play at that level. But until you actually get into the SEC or, in my case, when I got to minor league ball or to the big leagues, once you start having sustained success at that level, there's nothing like having confidence in any athletic field. If you don't have confidence, it's very hard to be successful. So to get the validation of being able to not only survive with your peers but excel with your peers, it makes you feel much better as a player.
I always think it's interesting the guys that choose to go the college route versus straight out of high school. And, everybody comes from different backgrounds. So there's a lot that goes into a decision like that. I've also heard major college ball, so like, SEC ball, compared to about like AA in the minors. So he's kind of saying, maybe not. Where is that?
I've heard that comparison.
But you don't agree?
I don't know if I agree with that. But
where do you put it?
Now, maybe 10 years ago I wouldn't agree, but nowadays with the amount of talent that's going to, like Paul Skeens could go get a lot of guys out in AA right now.
Yeah.
He could probably get a lot of guys out in the big leagues right now. So with the amount of, with the NIL and and they reduced the draft from 40 rounds to 20, there's a lot of things that COVID caused to make college baseball more competitive, which I think is great for the sport of college baseball, and also giving guys 3 years to develop before they get to professional baseball. But 10 years ago, I'd say it's not even close. Probably they've probably bridged that gap a little more. When I first got into pro ball, I would have compared it probably to low A.
Really?
Because, I mean, when I got drafted, I went straight to low A and was playing against guys I was playing against in the SEC 2 months prior. So you got to get hundreds, thousands of at-bats in the minor leagues. And then once you get to that AAA big league level, it's pretty much all guys that have played in the big leagues. So it's Double A is probably a bit of a stretch. I'd say somewhere in the low A to high A level.
What was the biggest adjustment as far as wooden bat versus metal bat your whole career? It seems like guys make that transition fairly easily for the most part, but it seems like it would be completely different.
Yeah, I think just in a day and age where kids are swinging wood bats from the time they're 15 in wood bat tournaments in East Cobb, Georgia, or down in Jupiter, Florida, guys are training in the cage with wood bats. Like I would give advice to any young kid, when you're hitting the cage and the results don't matter, use wood. Get you used to it, get you stronger. There's not as much room for forgiveness. So the biggest difference is I think you get to pro ball, pitchers are going to throw inside more. You're not going to get that jam job over the shortstop head quite as much as you would with a metal bat. I liked hitting with wood. I mean, if you square it up with wood, it feels good, and the ball usually carries it. The 3 years I played here, we kind of had that dead bat era, which there were some rough bats, but we made do with it. But I would say there's a big difference, but I would suggest every kid use wood bats when they're training and the results don't matter.
I didn't realize the East Cobb thing was as well known outside of the state of Georgia.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I'm from Georgia.
in the baseball world.
I knew how big of a deal it was within the state, but outside of the state, it's a big deal too.
Oh, in the baseball circles, everyone knows East Cobb.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think, you mentioned a second ago the NIL aspect of baseball now. Obviously, there's not a bunch of full scholarships running around in baseball, which has always been a little bit insane to me. Football, you got 25 per year, and now that limit isn't even there. But pretty much, you got 85 guys on full scholarship.
Yeah.
Baseball, they're like, actually take this and just split it up among your entire team. And we're going to put in limitations about exactly how you can even split it up. How much do you think NIL not only could help the athletes, but also will be almost a requirement for a top program to remain a top program, in that it's a chance to supplement a baseball player into basically having a full ride, just a little bit different way of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and act like I know how. I'm still trying to wrap my head around all the NIL stuff and how it works, but I've thought for years that college athletes should be compensated somehow. I don't know if it should have got to the degree it's gotten to with how crazy it is, but I think it's great that guys are able to earn a little supplemental income. Like you said, I doubt there's a single player at South Carolina or any major program that's on full ride. So to be able to help that kid or help that family be able to pay their tuition or have a little bit of meal money or whatever it may be is great. And it's fortunate that South Carolina is such a great baseball town, because I think that's going to afford guys more NIL opportunities than some smaller college out in the Midwest. But the passion that the fans have here and the success that the team has had in the last decade, and especially the last couple of years with them getting to a super regional this year, that building that fan excitement is just going to feed more into the NIL. And I think Gamecock fans are, if they smell a little bit of success in a sport, they're going to go full steam behind that sport, and we've seen that for years. So any help that we can give those guys, any type of support, whether it be our fandom, our finances, whatever it may be, I'm all in for that.
We continue our conversation with Grayson Greiner on today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour. Real quick, want to let you know about the 107.5 The Game football kickoff golf tournament coming up on Friday, August 25th. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow, out at the Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. It's $100 per person, $400 per team. If you want to join, give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000. Going to be raffling off football tickets, Carowin passes, and much, much more. Lunch provided by Firehouse Subs. Don't miss your chance to be a part of the 107.5 The Game football kickoff golf tournament. More of the Garnet Trust Hour with Grayson Greiner coming up next on 107.5 The Game.
It's the Garnet Trust Hour on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
There's a high drive towards left field. Going back as the left fielder, and it is out of here. He took it all the way almost to the parking lot. We have a 6-5 game. Grayson Greiner, a grand slam.
Tommy Moody on the call all the way back in 2014.
I know this has got to be Clemson.
It's Clemson. Grayson Greiner with the Grand Slam versus the rivals from the upstate. Grayson Greiner is joining us for today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour. Good memory there, huh?
It is. Yeah, every time I hear it, it brings back some good memories. So thank you for playing that.
I was at that game. It was, if I'm not mixing two memories here, I think it was cold for that game.
It was February.
Yeah. I was sitting on the third base line towards the outfield, and I watched that ball go by me and just keep on going. That was a heck of a moment because Clemson. I don't remember what happened for Clemson to go up pretty big, but then y'all struck back.
Yeah, I think we had Jordan Montgomery pitching that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we might have had an error, a big error at something, but they went up 6-0, and we got a run somewhere, and then we were facing Daniel Gossett, who I had played going back to high school, faced him a bunch, so he gave me a 2-0 fastball. Thankfully, I didn't miss it.
Yeah, he didn't miss it at all. That thing was crushed. Do you have any? I'm sure you do, but is there a favorite memory, or is there a handful of favorite memories from your time at South Carolina, other than just the experience as a whole?
Yeah, I mean,
is that one up there?
Those are up there. The going to the national championship as a freshman is number one for me. I mean, the whole reason you come to a program like this, it's not for individual anything. It's about getting to Omaha and trying to win it all. I have a very vivid memory. It's a bad memory of walking past the Arizona dog pile because I made the last out in that national title game, which stunk. But I have a vivid memory of that. The Clemson Grand Slam was awesome. The walk-off Tennessee Grand Slam with being number one on SportsCenter was really cool to be with my teammates, and we're just casually watching. And we thought so. Jordan Gore hit a walk-off earlier that day to finish a rain-delayed game from the night before. And then I hit the walk-off Grand Slam that night. So we're all together, and we're like, man, we might have a chance at SportsCenter. So like 10, 9, and 8 come. We're like, dang, we didn't make it. Gets down. We're like, they're probably not putting college baseball on top 10 plays. Because, I mean, as a kid, you grew up watching top 10 every night.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The coolest plays of the night. So, and then number one comes, and it's me and Jordan, and the whole house just goes nuts. It was a cool memory. That was a really cool memory, just to be with the teammates and celebrate that. And I think we ended up sweeping Tennessee the next day. So just a lot of great memories. All my teammates I still stay in touch with to this day. I'm joining that bowling league with Joey Pancake, Joel Seddon. So we're all still the best of friends. So the college experience there's nothing like it.
So you have all those guys on a team, and then everybody kind of branches off, and some of them are in the real world. Some of them are fighting the battle in the minors. Some of your teammates have made it all the way like you did. How much were you able to kind of follow everybody and what they were getting into and their sort of journeys as well?
Yeah, for sure. The Gamecock family is a really tight one. Even guys I didn't even play with, I would still play against them, and we'd talk. And like, I never played with Luke Berryhill, and I played against him this year. Never played with Clark Schmidt, but I've played against him. So everybody knows who played at Carolina, and that's a really tight fraternity. But among the guys that I got to play with and against in pro ball, Joey Pancake was one of my best friends. We got drafted to Detroit together. So that was really cool you go to an unfamiliar territory. It can be a little intimidating. So to have Joey there with me and going through it together was really cool. My first inning I ever caught in the big leagues was against the Royals, and the leadoff hitter was Whit Merrifield. So that was really cool. He stole 3 bases on me that game. But other than that, it was cool that, my first moment in the big leagues, there's another Gamecock in the box. Got to play for a couple days with Christian Walker with the Diamondbacks as teammates in the big leagues, which was really cool. So there's just that fraternity. Like I said, it's pretty much any team you look on, there's going to be a Gamecock, whether in the big leagues or in the minor league system. So we just have a great history of putting out a lot of really good players. And
especially that era when you were here, man, going back to kind of right before you got there, and then your era on forward. Yeah. I mean, you turn on a game, and I mean, there's a Gamecock somewhere. Yeah. Might be in the dugout, might be on the field. I was watching the Braves this week, and Carmen Majinski, he was pitching for the Pirates. And so Jordan Montgomery has carved out a nice career, man. How fun has that been to kind of watch him develop and
it's been awesome.
Work his way up?
I think our first offseason, we got drafted same year together. Our first offseason, we lived together up at Carolina Walk. So to get to see one of your really good friends have the success he's having, I think the trade to Texas was great. He's going to have a chance to compete for a World Series this year, which is amazing. I got to go to his wedding this past offseason and celebrate him and his new wife. So just to see, one of your really good friends having success on that stage and get rewarded for all the hard work is fantastic.
How connected are you still with the program today?
When I was playing, me and Christian and a couple guys would go hit up there 3, 4, 5 days a week, get to chat with Coach Kingston and Wingo and Coach Lee, and any chance we get to, talk to those guys or hang out. I mean, we don't want to get in their way they have a job to do to go try and win a national championship. So we tried to hit in the morning and get out of their way, but we would overlap with the players sometimes. And if they ever had any questions or just wanted to, those guys are all awesome. We were in their shoes 9, 10 years ago. So, any, relations I can have with that program or any former player can have with the program, we try to do it, try and get back to games.
Does it feel like 9 or 10 years ago?
Yeah, it does.
It does?
I think it's more than that. No, it's 10 years.
Yeah.
It feels old, or it feels a long time ago.
Yeah. I've always said when Carolina baseball is where it should be most years and where it wants to be, the town is just a little bit different during baseball season.
Yeah.
You could feel it in Columbia this past year, just the excitement level, again, being there. As a guy who's from around here, can you kind of speak to just being in Columbia when the baseball program is going good? Because that team this past year was just super fun, I think, for everybody to experience and watch.
I mean, I have vivid memories of going to the Sarge, watching that super regional game against North Carolina, watching Justin Smoke, watching Landon Powell. Those were my 2 favorite players growing up. And, just like you said, the crowd and the city just has a different buzz about it. Unfortunately, when you're playing in pro ball, the timing of the games here matches up. We don't get it. But when I would go on Twitter, X, I guess it's called now, when I go on there and see highlights, like when I saw the home run against LSU off Skeens, I mean, it looked like a madhouse in there. So it's just the guys feed off that. It's not fun playing in a cold, empty stadium, but when you get, getting towards the summer and you start getting 9, 10, 11,000 people in there, you feed off that. I remember the Clemson regional final we had my freshman year. They had to bring in like forklifts for people to get out on that street and watch the game. So as a player in any sport, you feed off the crowd. So I think Carolina's probably averages at least top 5 in the nation in attendance every year for baseball, and it's one of the best fan bases out there.
Any current players that stand out to you that excite you a lot?
I mean, Petrie's really good. He had an unbelievable freshman year. Cole Messina, I thought, I helped him with a catching clinic down in his hometown in Somerville this past year. It was right after his freshman year where he didn't play a whole lot, and I could see the quiet confidence that he felt he was going to have a big role this year. So to see him, excel the way he did and kind of take charge of that team. As a catcher, you kind of got to take charge of that team. You can do it quietly or you can do it, emotionally. And I think he was the emotional leader for that team. And they feed off that. Catcher's the unique position where you got 8 sets of eyeballs on you and you're looking at 8 sets of eyeballs. There's no other position on the field like that. So you got to have that energy. You got to have good body language. And to see Cole kind of fill into that role and have an unbelievable year defensively and offensively was really cool to see from the outside looking in. But catchers have a special spot in their heart for other catchers. So I'll always take their side.
And that's completely exactly the direction I was about to go. Do you find, I'm sure if you're watching a game even, you're kind of, do you ever see a catcher like take one, like you said, or take one off the thigh and you're just kind of like, man,
it's like the little push pin doll where you feel it sticking I just feel it on my thigh when they take a foul ball. So yeah, you find, like I said, you find a special spot in your heart for even when you're playing against guys you don't know, what those catchers are going through.
What is that relationship like between catcher and home plate ump? Because I feel like you're constantly kind of walking that line between, I want this call, but also you always notice, I think it's one of the best, like, unwritten baseball rules, how, like, if the catcher takes one, the ump kind of takes a little bit longer. If you see the ump gets hit, you might, be a little bit slower to get down your crouch. There's kind of this little unspoken relationship, it feels like, that's always there.
Yeah, I tried to never give those guys a hard time because I have the same vantage point those guys have, and I know how hard it is in a split second to make a call on a ball that might have hit the plate, it might not. We don't really know.
Yeah.
So I tried to always be really nice to those guys. Made a point to introduce myself before the first pitch, and like you said, we're always talking. I'll ask him what he sees, he'll ask what I see, and I'll never show a guy up or argue with the call too much unless it's egregious, and it's been egregious for a long time.
How important or how much has pitch framing maybe changed or progressed? Or it feels like that's like such an art now, and now they have the analytics that I have no idea how that part of it works, but I know the poor umpires, man, like they got that box on TV now.
Yeah.
And it's like if the thing is 1 inch outside.
Yeah.
And I'm yelling at the TV too. I'm like, my guy's got to have that call. Like, what are you doing? But then some of the catchers are just so, it's like it's an art to framing it, I guess. Can you speak to that skill? I guess it is a skill.
Yes. So depends how in depth you want me to get. There's a lot of moving parts to all that. The analytics of it essentially is they let's say there's a pitch right down the middle, and that pitch is called a strike 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you are catching and you somehow miss that pitch, you lose a full point. So if you get a pitch that's normally called 80% of the time, and you miss it, you lose 0.8 points. So you look at the end of the game, every pitch that you catch, if you get it correct, you only get 0.2. If you miss it, you lose 0.8. So you look at your aggregate score at the end of the game, and that's your score for the game. So that's a very basic version of how the analytics of it work. But on the same token, if you take a pitch that's a 12% strike call and you win it, you get plus 0.88 on your score. So that's where, as catchers, we're trying to, like when I'm giving lessons to a catcher, my goal is every pitch that's a strike, I want to keep a strike, and I want to win 2, 3, 4 pitches outside the zone per game. So the art of catching is really fun to watch. It's why I'm a little afraid if they go to I got to play in AAA with the Robo Zone for 2 years. It's cool as a hitter because you know it's a consistent zone. As a catcher, it's not as fun because you can't win those calls for your pitcher and help your team in that capacity. So I think it's going to end up going to the big leagues eventually. I don't know how long and how refined that process is going to be, but as a catcher lifer, I hope it doesn't happen because it's really fun to see the Jose Trevinos of the world and the JT Realmutos of the world really be able to manipulate the baseball and help their team in ways other than just throwing or hitting.
Continue our conversation with Grayson Greiner on today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour here on 107.5 The Game.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. 107.5 The Game.
The one. Taken, tag, deep to left, get up and get out of here! A walk-off grand slam by Grayson Greiner. Greiner has gone grand, and the Gamecocks win it 9-6. And let the mob scene begin at home plate.
Welcome back into the Garnet Trust Hour here on 107.5 The Game. That was the aforementioned grand slam against Tennessee that netted Grayson Greiner on SportsCenter's top 10 at number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all are making me feel good today.
That was an awesome moment, man. SportsCenter top 10. I feel like SportsCenter isn't what it used to be now, but back then,
it was not what it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you watch it every night. But I mean, it was
pretty awesome.
Cool for us.
Well, now we get all highlights on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it.
Scroll through and find a quick video. Did you ever play they only had it for I think a couple of years, the college baseball video game?
I played it once.
What, you weren't into
those games? Those games were fun.
Yeah, they were. I played a lot of Madden college college football video game. I loved those games.
You gonna buy next year's game when it comes out?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't have a whole lot of time with 2 kids at home, but I'll get on there as much as I can.
We'll have to get him into our tournament. That
we're gonna do a big tournament, but that game is gonna bring so many 30-year-old-ish people back into gaming. I think
Yeah, PlayStation and Xbox sales will probably go up pretty significantly when that game comes out.
I've already said I don't have a PS5 or whatever the latest Xbox is. I will be getting one just for that game.
Yep.
How much was gaming in the locker room? Like I see sometimes some guys like I think have a backpack with their PlayStation in it.
Yeah.
But did guys play in or not as much?
A lot of guys brought, like you said, the little travel kits for the hotels to play on the road. When I first started, I would travel a little bit just to kill time in the hotel before we go to the park and after games. But probably the last 4 or 5 years of my career, I didn't.
Right.
I haven't gamed a whole lot in a while. So, but there are a lot of serious gamers in pro baseball. I'm sure all sports. They got the monitor setups and all the high def earphones, whatever it may be.
What is the most interesting teammate you've ever had in your pro career?
Oh, that's tough.
Interesting can be.
Yeah, there's a wide variety there.
Go
whatever way you want to.
I guess I'll just go with the guy that was publicly. He got a lot of press, I guess, for I don't know if you know the name Daniel Norris.
Okay.
He lived in a van. He was very, he had a really long beard. He's one of my favorite teammates I've ever had. He's fantastic. Big surfer.
Okay.
He'd come to spring training in like an old Volkswagen van and live in that. So he was very interesting, but one of my good friends in pro ball, and we stay in touch to this day.
I mean, not to get too deep here on a sports show, but the coolest thing about a locker room or a team of any sport is that you really do have a different personality on every single player in that dugout. But then y'all are all coming together, and you may not even agree on anything, but you're gonna come together for the betterment of let's try to go win. Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. You get people from all parts of the country, all different political beliefs, religious beliefs. I mean, but at the end of the day, when the first pitch happens, we're all going for the same goal. So just like you said, it's I'm sure it's like that in a lot of professions where you get, people have their different backgrounds, different beliefs, but at the end of the day, we all made it work. And like you said, I've probably seen every personality trait known to man over the last 13 years. So, but it's fun to see. You meet some very interesting, very funny, very smart, very, and cool people throughout the years.
So, as a catcher, what have you thought of the new MLB rules this year? Bigger bases, no shifting. It's directly affected catchers because stolen bases are just up like crazy. Has it gone too far into, or do you still, even as a catcher, think it's?
I think it might have gone if
a little too far.
Yeah, if you go from not that many stolen bases to setting the major league record in 1 year, it might be a little bit of an extreme. There's not a whole lot of a gradual change there. It was pretty, drastic. But catchers, we didn't have much of a chance. So the rules are 3 pickoff attempts. If you don't get them on the third one, it's a balk. They get the next base, and that goes for the entirety of the at-bat. But what we learned in about the first week was managers and pitchers and catchers didn't want to pick a second time because then they could just time you up for the third one.
Yep.
So that means pretty much you had 1 pick attempt, and that was it. And they were going within the next 1 or 2 pitches because nobody was going to want to pick twice. So it essentially went from 3 pickoff max to a 1 pickoff max, and then they're timing you up immediately. So Major League average used to be 30% caught stealing. I can't imagine what it is this year. I haven't looked at it, but I would guess it's probably in the high teens.
Yeah.
It's just,
if not lower.
If not lower. You get to see some pretty cool video game stat lines, though. I mean, Acuna might hit 40 and steal 80. I mean, we don't know.
Somebody's going to steal 100 base for too long.
It's Ricky Henderson's record might be in peril here in the next 2 decades or so. But the bigger bases didn't see a whole lot of difference other than it putting the guys a little closer to each bag. The pitch clock I loved. I thought I was going to hate it. I loved it. You play 162 games.
You're like,
you don't want a Tuesday night game that's going until 1:30 in the morning because of he goes to 14 innings and 20 pitching changes. The average game was about 2.5 hours. You could pretty much bank on that. And it was, if you got a really long game, it would be 3 hours, which was kind of the quick game with the old rules. So,
I didn't
think I was going to be a fan. Once you get used to when you need to call time and when you need to give yourself a breather, you don't feel that rushed. You just got to make guys nowadays train so hard in the off season. There's not really a problem with the conditioning of being rushed. Pitchers do a great job of keeping their bodies in shape and running. So that was that was the biggest rule change, and I think it's benefited the game greatly.
So with the pitch clock, how does that change your job as a catcher? What are you doing differently now that you have less time?
So it's quick. So you throw it back. They have the PitchCom device on our knee, which is essentially a little video game controller with 9 black buttons. You click in your pitch, click in your location. The pitcher hears it. This is all happening probably as the clock's ticking down. It's probably at like 12 at this point. I got to look over to the manager to see if he wants me to pick off to any bases. We might have a first and third play. We might have a bunt play on. I got to remember what the scouting report is on this guy, what he likes to do in a 1-1 count against a right-handed pitcher. I mean, there's just so many thoughts that go on, and it's all condensed in a 15-second period now, where it used to be stand up, look over, get the pickoff sign from the manager, get down, kind of look down, think about what I want to do with this guy, how I want to set him up. If it's a 1-1 count, do I want to get to 1-2 here or set him up for a future pitch? You don't have time for any of that now. It's get the pitch in, set up, throw back, get the pitch in, set up. So it's much more sped up for sure.
All right, we'll wrap up today's conversation on the Garnet Trust Hour with Grayson Greiner coming up next here on 107.5 The Game.
It's the Garnet Trust Hour on your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
Even better than I was the last time, baby.
And welcome back into the Garnet Trust Hour here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, today's special guest, Grayson Greiner, former South Carolina baseball great and MLB pro. I wanted to bring this up. I think we all know the experience of getting hit by a baseball. Mm-hmm. However, in spring training 2 years ago, you took a 94-mile-per-hour fastball to the face.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
It was we were facing a young kid for the Blue Jays who had hit another one of my friends and teammates with the Tigers in the helmet 2 days earlier, and he was hitting before me. I don't remember what he did, but he had told me, like, this guy just hit me in the head 2 days ago. Be careful. So I get up there, and it's the first pitch, and it just, like a heat-seeking missile, can't get out of the way. It hurt. I fell to the ground and had a lot of blood, like, in my mouth and in, like, my nasal passage. Mm-hmm. So it was tough to breathe. So they kind of leaned me up and spit out all the blood. Then they took me to the hospital. Main thing they were looking for was making sure I didn't have an orbital fracture, which is, I guess, a really important bone right here that makes sure your face doesn't droop, I guess. That was intact. Had a broken nose. Ended up missing, I think, 9 days. And AJ Hinch called me in his office. He's like, you're in there tomorrow. You're going to be starting. I was like, cool, who are we playing? He's like, you got Garrett Cole. Oh. I was like, you couldn't have given me something a little easier to welcome me back, but wasn't a great feeling. Some really cool story about that. So I'm sitting on my couch after that night after I got hit or whatever. I get a text on my phone from a number I don't recognize. And I look down and the message reads, hey, Grayson, this is Shane Beamer. Hope you're feeling well. And I had never met Coach Beamer or anything, so I think that goes to show how connected Coach Beamer is with the alumni here and how important, alumni relations are and how much we love our Gamecocks. And that just shows, the links he'll go to reach out to those. And it made me feel really good.
And well, he would have only just recently have gotten the job.
Yeah, it was before
then.
Yeah, it was before, and it was cool that he got my number from somebody to reach out, and wow, just shows the character that he has.
Absolutely.
Perfect segue, man. Football right around the corner.
Can't wait.
I know you're excited. This year, you got the whole season potentially. Are we going to see you? Can fans see you over at Williams-Brice jumping up and down with a towel?
I'll be there.
Sandstorm?
I'll be there as much as I can. Went to some games last year. As a family, we all went down to the bowl game. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most fun games I've ever been to. Even though we lost, it was one of the most fun games I've ever been to. The 100-yard pick six. There were so many ebbs and flows of that game. I was coming back from a wedding for the Tennessee weekend. My wife, we were stopped in Alabama. She's like, do you want to drive through the night so we can go to the Tennessee game? This was after we lost to Florida. I was like, I don't really want to go to that one.
Yeah.
But I really wish I had gone now. Those last 2 weeks were, I mean, we couldn't have come into this season with more momentum after that. Returned a lot of really good players. So it's going to be exciting to see what those guys do and to support them. And, sky's the limit for this program. I'm so excited.
What have you thought of just watching Rattler, especially what he did at the end of last year? The natural ability there.
Oh, yeah.
Off the charts, man.
Yeah, his ability to throw the ball, and he's just so smart as a quarterback. To see him flourish those last 2 weeks and kind of see, I think he probably has high expectations for himself, especially after that, to see that he can do that against, Clemson's had one of the best defenses in the country for the last however many years. To be able to do what he did against them and against Tennessee and against Notre Dame, it's got to validate for him that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and can't wait to see what he does this year and lead this team.
Yeah, are you 6'6"?
6'6", yep.
Now, did Spurrier or anybody from the football staff try and convince you to come over and play football?
They probably watched me run one time. That was the end of that.
We talked about this. He was listed 6'5" at Carolina.
Okay.
But he grew an inch, or he was fibbing. See, I add an inch to my height, if anybody asks. Grayson at the time was subtracting an inch so he could get drafted.
My dad was like, there's never been a 6'6" catcher. Just say you're 6'5", maybe they'll draft you, pick high or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I'd say I'm about 6'6" and a quarter or so.
He has the record. You knew that, right, Tyler?
I did not know that.
Tallest catcher
in
MLB history.
Claim to fame. Yep.
Modern history.
I can't think of too many catchers that would rival that, so it makes sense.
Yep.
I always like asking the guys that play for Coach Tanner, because there's Coach Tanner, the AD press conference, talking to us here in studio guy, and then there's Coach Tanner on a baseball field.
Oh, yeah.
It's been 10 years, so, you can say whatever you want at this point, Grayson. What was it like, seriously, kind of, I think people don't realize just how competitive Ray Tanner is, and what that meant to, like, drive that program to the heights it went to. Yeah. What was it like being around that every single day?
Yeah, playing for him was, one of the great privileges of my life. Even though I give him crap all the time. Him and Coach Holbrook came to our house, my senior year, laid out the pros and cons of coming to college instead of going to pro ball. He's like, yeah, you'll play for me and we'll do great things, whatever it may be. And then, of course, he leaves after the first year. So I give him a hard time about that all the time. But that 1 year was pretty special. We went to a national championship, and then, of course, he took the athletic director job and has done an amazing job. We have a great relationship to this day. I see him a couple times a year, whether it be at football games, baseball games, go see him at his office. But as a coach, he's just he's hard on you. I mean, y'all probably heard stories from past players about how hard he is, but he brings out the best in you too. Like if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, he'll call you out on it. But if you succeed and excel, he'll make sure he gives you the credit for it too. He was just an awesome coach to play for. There's a reason he's so successful and was so successful for so long, and it's a reason he's a successful athletic director. Like you said, the competitive edge, I think, as a coach, he's brought over into that athletics director role. He wants South Carolina to be the best program in the country, and I know he believes that in his heart. And it's been cool to watch that transition for him as a former player, and just really happy for him.
Well, that's all we have time for on today's edition of the Garnet Trust Hour. Grayson, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we're glad you're back here in the Columbia community.
Yep, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, coming up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game.